I want to talk to you about the challenges of doing business in a global context, and therefore the challenges that managers face when they have to manage businesses in a global context. It's the tail end of what we do in our first week. So let me retreat to the corner of your screen and share this presentation with you. There you are. Here's the thing. We can list 5 challenges. Could we list 10 challenges? I expect so, but we place before you 5 challenges, and this is what they look like. You're saying that one of the key things for large businesses in particular is building a competitive advantage in a global context. Every business has to be competitive, but it's essential for businesses operating in a global environment to be able to compete on a global stage. To that, we add the requirement to maintain ethical and socially responsible standards, as I write it there. The challenge of managing a diverse workforce, the challenge of using technology appropriately, deftly, adroitly, and then managing the crises that arise in global contexts. So each of those things, they are constructs, and if you want to know what a construct is, it's an idea. It's an idea of something that has separate elements. So let's have a look at what these ideas are. The idea of competitive advantage is something where there's 2 definitions. I'm going to show you the textbook definition, and I'm going to show you my definition. I think my definition is a lot easier to remember. It's not more correct, it's not less correct, but it's a heck of a lot simpler, so I think you might like it. You see, competitive advantage is defined like this: the ability of one organization to outperform other organizations because it produces desired goods or services more efficiently and effectively than the competitors. It's a little clumsy, but it makes sense, to me at any rate. But you'll find a couple of things. There is always an element of innovation in any business which is outperforming its rivals. And that innovation is something which gives rise to the elements of my definition, which is that a competitive business does things better and faster and nicer and cheaper than its competitors. That essentially is the heartbeat of any enterprise which is competitive. And the building blocks are illustrated in various ways. Here's an element from a textbook. I think that what is missing from this is productivity, because output, being able to produce goods and services, is a cornerstone of competitive advantage. So that's just a surface look, a shallow look at what we mean by competitive advantage. And if you were to study this further at university, for example, here you could do a management major. We would go into each of those elements in far greater depth. But I want to introduce you to the notion or idea or construct of turnaround management. Again, this is a complex definition: creation of a new vision for a struggling company using a new approach to planning and organizing, because we think that's going to make better use of a company's resources to allow it to survive and eventually prosper. Basically, turnaround management is what managers have to do if a business is busy closing down because it can't pay its bills. So here's some simple elements of turnaround management. Fundamentally transforming the business. Again, we often rely on innovation to undertake this transformation. An informal management-led reversal process, turning back the clock to prevent a financially struggling or poorly performing business from insolvency. And the last one I have on this page for you: a business turnaround can be defined by the need to completely rethink the activity in order to put the company back on the track of economic growth. Then we come to this notion of ethical and responsible standards. And there has been, certainly over the last 25 to 30 years, a steadily incrementing body of opinion, public opinion, that has obligated companies to legitimize their existence. In other words, to say that they're not there simply to make profit for the people who own them, and and that they are in fact there to make the world a slightly better place, and to make profit for the people who own them, but to do so responsibly. We talk about it as responsible and sustainable business management, and it's something again which you can study as a stream of specialization. Another one is managing workforce diversity, particularly acute wherever you don't have a homogeneous population like South Africa, and we know that social cohesion has not been achieved to the extent that one might imagine that the Rainbow Nations glorious constitution would have enabled. We're working at it, and in much the same way a company has to work at enabling a diverse workforce to get on with each other. There is the notion of using new technologies and using new technologies successfully and effectively. What I draw for you there is a box which suggests that every business has operations and marketing and people and financial management at its core. And if we were to draw an IT, an information technology backbone through the business, then you recognize that it becomes possible to link every aspect of that business to every other aspect, as well as to the external world on either side of the business. Basically, information and communication technology has enabled us to do business in a hyper-competitive way. And larger companies cannot, in fact, imagine that they can work successfully at achieving any level of competitive advantage unless they exploit information technology. Some small businesses can get away without the use of information and communication technology, but they are never going to be world beaters by any stretch of the imagination. Information technology is an interesting one, and we're not going to study it in any further, but I will point out to you that computers are simply fast, accurate, and reliable. It allows us to make decisions far better because the functions of a computer system, which is to simply capture data and to store it and to move it around to different places and to be able to manipulate it and to be able to report upon it, that allows people to make informed decisions. That's one thing. Let's move away from that to this fifth global context challenge, which is about practicing global crisis management. And what we're saying is that there are natural causes in the world, and natural causes cause problems, but there are also human causes. Crisis management is about establishing a chain of command with skilled, decisive people who can attend to the calamities which manifest when there are global crises. So let me give you an example. Right now, we ask what is happening in the Red Sea. Well, I can tell you briefly, and this is from the JP Morgan bank trading in the Northern Hemisphere in particular, that Houthi rebels are attacking cargo ships and tankers. And that means that ships are avoiding the Suez Canal. Instead, they're coming around here, where we stayed, in Southern Africa. That adds 4,000 miles. Now, 4,000 miles is about 6,500 kilometers. Okay, it's a chunk of distance, and that is costly because ships have to burn more fuel oil, and they take a longer time. So an extra 2 or 3 weeks traveling around the whole of Africa, and I think I might as well show you a picture of this, instead of shipping, let's say, from India through to Europe via the Red Sea, and I'm tracing the route for you, through the Suez Canal, which is constructed here, and from there onto Europe, docking at any numbers of ports, the Adriatic Sea of Italy. One can ship into Spain and Portugal and into France and England and Denmark and further north beyond the map, Norway. If you don't travel this route here, then the only way is to ship all the way around Africa. And that takes a long time and costs a lot more. So looking at this area of the Red Sea a little more closely, what I have is a map, which indicates with those red dots um, the nature of attacks. So shipping, in other words, is not safe, and that degree of conflict is causing a problem, and it's a grave problem. 30% of containers move through the Suez Canal, and that has resulted in an increase in costs of up to 5 times. And that means that those high costs are going to start manifesting in goods, what we recognize as inflation. So let's walk away from there and just have a look at my mantra of productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness, or quality, as some people call it. Draw your picture. What we're saying is that you are looking to take resources, and those resources are acted upon. In other words, we will transform leather into shoes, for example. And if we perform well, we generate a lot of shoes, we're very productive, then that is going to have an impact on our enterprise, and we can measure whether we have been effective or not. Now, not all businesses that are productive are in fact effective. Remember, productivity is about whether you make a lot, and efficiency is about whether you can do that using as little resources and wasting as few resources as possible. And effectiveness means that you do it in such a way that it delights the customer because the quality is so high. It meets the specification for the particular application of the product. And that means we can look at a couple of alternatives over here. If a business is not productive, it's not going to do well because it has poor output. It has nothing to sell. If it is not efficient, then it's going to be wasting resources. It's going to be wasting raw materials. It's going to be wasting money. It's going to be wasting the energy of its people. And if it is ineffective, then people are not going to buy what the business sells because it is of such poor quality, right? So the options which emerge, I'm going to show you 4, and there's only one which works. If something is effective or of high quality, but it costs a heck of a lot to make, then not many people are going to buy it because they're going to say it's overpriced. There's just too much cost that the supplier is trying to recover, and if something is made in an expensive way and it's also of poor quality, well, that's not something anyone in their right mind would buy. The only thing you're going to do is support enterprises, suppliers, corporates that subscribe to high efficiency and high effectiveness, because that makes sense. Certainly not this last one. High efficiency, but low quality. In other words, spend very little, but produce goods which people are not going to like because it doesn't suit their requirements. You recognize here that if you are going to avoid inefficiency and low productivity and ineffectiveness, that challenge is only met in one particular way. The question then arises whether you are going to rise to the challenge as someone who is a manager of the future. We'll see in due course.